Thank you, Dean Martlew. It's my honor to be here today to welcome the 41 graduates of the Charles Evan Hughes class of the Tampa Bay campus of the Western Michigan University Thomas M. Cooley College of Law. I would like everyone here to give these 41 deserving graduates a round of applause. You see, today is a monumental day for the 41 of you. It feels good to be done, doesn't it? You could nod. Let me see the nod. Yeah. It took hard work and sacrifice, didn't it? I know it did. The journey was hard. If your journey was easy, it's my opinion that you may not have appreciated the details of the scenery along the way. I want today's theme of this commencement speech to be one's journey and perseverance. And I want the theory of my time with you today to be that it's little about where you start in life and much more about what you choose to do during your life's journey. Now, I figure to throw that in to get some bonus points with your trial practice professors. So, in all seriousness, when the dean's office contacted me many months ago about giving this commencement address, I honestly did not know why they contacted me. Of all the wonderful and accomplished people in Tampa Bay, I was just appointed by Governor Rick Scott to the appellate bench. I'm the most junior judge of 16 judges on my court. I wasn't a trial judge before becoming an appellate judge, and I was only 41, hardly enough to have any life experience. Why me? Is what I asked myself. So, as usual, my wife, Dina, provided me clarity, as she always does. The evening that the dean's office contacted me and extended me this invitation to be here today, and Dina said, I use that phrase a lot in my life, by the way, just convey to them that if you can do it, they can do it. And then she, like she does, got very serious and said, tell them about your journey and how you ended up at the podium that day on their special day. Tell them about the journey to get in the life and career I've had. This cuts against the grain of everything I'm about. I don't want to talk about myself. I don't think I'm particularly interesting. And after about 30 seconds of reflection, I thought it was prudent to listen to my wife. By the way, that's my first piece of advice for you today. Not just listen to your spouse, hear them. Let me take you on a journey for the next 13 to 15 minutes. Before doing so, I want to confess something to you that I haven't confessed to many people about my journey. It was scenic, way scenic. I've been told no many times in my life. Most recently, I was told no twice by applying to the appellate bench here in Florida. Let's just say that 3 times was a charm for me. My journey, as Dean Martlew referenced, began in Brooklyn, New York, in not exactly a luxurious area. I did not have a storied upbringing. I didn't think it was particularly interesting to talk about it, but once again, I'm going to refer to my wife. My father, who passed away recently, was blind. My mother worked multiple jobs to support the family. Despite my father's best efforts to gain employment, he couldn't get an interview, let alone a job. Folks didn't think blind people could do anything back in the 60s and 70s, and that he would be a liability. Dad's only source of income during my childhood was Social Security disability income, which hardly covered living expenses for the 5 of us. It's 3 children and mom and dad. Our family lived at or below the defined poverty level for most of my childhood. We received food from food banks around Brooklyn, and we received gracious gifts and meals from our church's ministry. I got a sneak preview, though, of what my wardrobe was going to look like in the coming years by just simply looking at what my cousins were wearing now. But see, unlike them, my clothes were broken in because they played hard. When other kids in the neighborhood went to summer camp or took family vacations, I would jump on the train from Brooklyn by myself. Probably would be some form of child neglect now. And I would travel to the federal courthouse in Manhattan, where my mother worked. See, she worked in the bookkeeper's office, and she had a high school diploma, and she worked as, I collect the money for court reporters who want to sell their transcripts to the media after a day of trial. And she made sure that that money was paid by the media outlets, or sometimes law firms, and made sure they got to the appropriate court reporters. Well, I would get there early in the morning. I didn't have much to do there at home. And Mom's lunch hour wasn't for hours. So where would I go during these blistering hot summers? First, I would go to air condition. And the federal courthouse had wonderful air condition. I'd go into the courtrooms. I'd sit down and watch attorneys make argument. I would watch the stoic federal judges up on this bench wearing black make rulings off the cuff, question counsel, instruct the jury. I would watch the jury's reaction to arguments that were made by counsel. And I learned what doesn't work. As witnesses were testifying, I would notice how scared they were to be there, even though they hadn't done anything wrong. I learned about our justice process in the United States at 11 years old. Now, was it weird for an 11-year-old to do this? I'm going to go with a firm lawyer answer of probably. But in retrospect, it was a welcome distraction from my everyday life, where I didn't have school to distract me during the summer. For that time, in that perfectly air-conditioned federal courthouse with this beautiful artwork and perfectly cleaned and marble fixtures with water fountains with like ice-cold, tasty water, and these mausoleum-type courtrooms, I felt like everyone else that sat there. I was just like everyone else. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. Like a treat from the ice cream truck that would drive down our block on hot summer days, or hearing about my friends that went to Disney World that summer. I just was just like everyone else. But most importantly, in that federal courthouse in the Southern District of New York, I determined and became determined that I would be a judge someday. Now let's fast forward to the mid-1980s. My life changed. My parents separated. My mom, one of my sisters, moved down to South Florida in a very small apartment nearby where my grandfather Armando lived. Our daughter Amanda is named in honor of my grandfather Armando. My grandfather got me involved immediately with Boy Scouts and Civil Air Patrol, and taught me the importance of learning how I can't become a good leader until I learned how to become an excellent follower. In Boy Scouts, I learned about goal setting and time management. I continue to volunteer in the Boy Scouts program because I believe it was integral to my success in my life. My view is that if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. You must have clearly defined goals in both your life and your professional career. And today is just the starting point of that. I also learned the value of 5 minutes from my grandfather. People who do not value 5 minutes have never been on the other side of the bathroom door when they need to use it. So I digress. I was so busy with youth activities here in my state of Florida that I did not have time to notice what we didn't have. I instead became grateful for what I did have and focused on what I needed to do next to achieve the goal that I had set. And each night before I went to bed, no, it's a little wacky at 12 years old, I would look at the goals that I set just before I went to sleep so that I had direction the next day. I was awarded the Eagle Scout, graduated from high school and went to the University of Florida, and as Mark Lou referenced, where I met my best friend and now my wife, Dina, who's here today, some 23 years ago. Then my journey had a detour, a major detour. My junior year, I noticed that I had increasingly more glare when I was driving at night from the library back home to my small apartment. I'd always worn glasses. I didn't think it was a big deal, just needed to go to the doctor and just get new glasses. Well, I learned a few weeks later that I was going to lose my vision in both eyes due to a rare cornea disease that had, to that point in time, been left undiagnosed. I shrugged it off at first. I was goal-oriented, didn't let it bother me all that much. But it hit me like a ton of bricks when a law school admissions officer somewhere in the United States told me that I may want to consider becoming a lawyer due to my inability to probably handle the vast readings in both law school and the practice of law. And then a guidance counselor, though much more delicately, told me that I may want to think about entering the legal profession completely. Well, the next day I responded by signing up for both the LSAT and the GRE. That's a true story. And it's obvious I applied to law schools anyway. While in law school at the University of Florida, I had 2 cornea transplants, both my right eye and my left eye over the course of 13 months in the midst of first and second year law school. I received the cornea grafts from 2 different donors over the course of 13 months, who graciously gave me their tissue when they passed. The recovery was long for each of the 2 surgeries, and it was uncomfortable, particularly when you try to read and you blink less. My vision would shift each day, each time one of the 20 to 25 stitches in each eye decided it wanted to break, and I needed to go to the ER to have it removed. I just continued on. I kept up with my class reading with the help of a program called Vocalize. Volunteers, mostly retired individuals, would read my law class readings, God help them, onto then cassette tapes, Google it, for me to listen to while I walked and exercised. I would then also replay those cassette tapes while trying to follow along in my casebooks to fill in the gaps from when my eyes wouldn't exactly cooperate on a page. You see, it was a blessing that I lost my sight, because when I lost my sight, I gained vision. I also learned how to listen more carefully. Despite keeping up with all the classwork during my 4 years total in law school, and I'll explain why in a minute, and weathering all the storms, there was still skepticism amongst folks that I wouldn't be able to make it through or practice law, that it may not be in my best interests to continue forth with the curriculum. So what did I do? Well, I applied for a job, because after your first year you can work, to become a graduate assistant at the University of Florida's Center for Criminology and Law, to teach a couple or 3 different classes, criminal law to undergraduates and research methods of criminology. Got the job amongst 100 and something applicants of people that also wanted money. And that covered my law school tuition. That hadn't been covered before. Oh, and I enrolled in a master's degree. That was the extra year. More than one school administrator, both on main campus for the graduate school and at the law school, thought I was nuts. And I didn't blame them. There were times that I actually thought I was nuts too. About a year later, the professor that hired me in that graduate assistantship and paid me a salary, paid for my tuition credits, and I worked hard and published a lengthy article that was about less than a year later cited by the United States Supreme Court in the main text. Let me just say that some of the law professors were angry because you worked your whole career to get cited by the Supreme Court, and here's the guy that we didn't think could make it in the first instance get cited. So I served also on the executive editorial board, required more reading, of an interdisciplinary journal, and led a symposium on juvenile justice programs in the state of Florida, proposing alternative solutions than incarceration. But remember, I wouldn't make it through law school. In 1999, I graduated with a wedding band. Thank you for saying yes, Dina. A JD, an MA, a job with the U.S. Attorney General's Honors Program, to be followed with a clerkship with Judge Frank Mays Hull on the U.S. Court of Appeals in Atlanta. Oh, and by the way, I disclosed to Judge Hull about my surgeries with my eyes, and she said, "John, I didn't hire you for your eyes, I hired you for your brain." although I appreciate the candor. I'm forever thankful for that opportunity that she gave me. She came down from Atlanta to participate in my investiture ceremony last year. My journey to that point wasn't exactly a dream scenario, wasn't storybook, wasn't particularly interesting, at least in my eyes. It had unexpected obstacles that all of you have had and will continue to have. And I posit that it is supportive of the theory that it's less about where you start in life, but instead what you do during your life's journey. In my legal career, I've worked side by side, and I've made arguments at the podium at every level of the federal court system: bankruptcy, magistrate court, U.S. District Court during jury trials, appeals in the U.S. Court of Appeals, and even the Supreme Court. I made the arguments. And these lawyers went to top 5 undergraduate schools. They went to top 5 law schools. They clerked had the prestigious clerkships with Supreme Court justices. They remind you about every 90 seconds. They had parents and grandparents who were doctors and judges, real estate developers, and were prominent lawyers. I honestly didn't think about it much. It didn't matter. I was there right by them. Our journeys led us to the same place. We just had different scenery along the way. Candidly, I had preferred my scenery because it was specially tailored for me. I'm proud of that scenery because I had my hand in learning how to appreciate it and pass it by, and never forget it, and embrace it. You see, I know now why Dean Martlew may have reached out to me to speak after we had a couple of conversations about Cooley's internship program. And I understand why my wife had suggested that I talk about my journey today. Maybe I am an example, a casebook example, of the theory that I posed at the beginning of this talk. That is, it's little about where you start in life and much more what you do during your life's journey. I don't want you to ever let someone intimidate you for any reason in litigation or in life. I don't want anyone to ever let you feel out of place during litigation or in your life for any reason. You cannot let anyone make you feel inferior without your permission. The fact is you're right there with them. Your journeys were just different. Be proud of your scenic journey because it belongs to you. It was specially designed for each and every one of the 41 of you. What matters is what you decide what you do with your life's journey from today forward by setting clearly defined goals and a plan to meet those goals, by being financially responsible and not going out and buying a brand new car upon your first job when you may have other financial responsibilities, and persevering through the challenging legal profession that you will face, but it's rewarding. The critics say that there's too many lawyers. My response is there will never be too many great lawyers. My response is simple. Every law school around the United States will train individuals in their way, but only a few of those individuals will become great. It's because what they do during their life's journey. They simply do not become great by simply being. They must do before they can be. I want you to reach out for a mentor. No question is a stupid question. Trust me, I've asked some. But it wasn't stupid. Always tell the truth. Play above board in all negotiations. Earn every dollar you bill. If a client felt like you worked hard for her, she will come back and refer you business. If you overbill the client and do not honestly work the time that you're billed, she'll pay once, but she won't come back. Guard your reputation with your life. It's all you take with you. You don't take money or material things. My final topic is more of a challenge. I challenge you to provide opportunities to deserving individuals once you get settled in the legal profession. I hired an extern from your school this past semester, Simone Genus, who did a fantastic job. She didn't go to law school immediately following undergraduate because it was just the next thing to do. She instead entered the workforce and earned money to attend law school. She worked hard for our court this past semester and assisted me in making critical decisions that you will read. Oh, and did I mention she only came to the United States in 2001? Wait a second, I'll make it sound better. It actually was 2007. And I hired Vitaly Katz, who's seated right there next to my daughter, Amanda. Raise your hand. And you can get to embarrass people. Let me tell you about Vitaly. He's from the University of Florida, undergraduate, law school, and went to Emory, undergraduate. I read his cover letter. Here was the stack of people that wanted to clerk for me. I was like, why me? And then they talked to my wife, and you know the story. Okay. So aside from his excellent academic credentials, he, his mother and father and older sister immigrated to the United States in 1995 from a portion of the ex-Soviet bloc as religious refugees. His mother was a prominent oral surgeon in that area of the country. They immigrated. She became an aide to an elderly person in Palm Beach. She did what she needed to do to serve the family. Now, since 1995, she's a dental hygienist, still doing what she needs to do for her family. Vitaly was diagnosed with a rare blood disease when he was 6 years old and nearly died. He attended a public high school. He was identified as a gifted writer and earned a scholarship to Emory in Atlanta. And he was an editor on the University of Florida Law Review. And he passed the July bar exam. And he has the distinction, or however you want to characterize it, of being the first person I ever swore into the bar. What continues to impress me about him is he does not have that sense of entitlement about him. He does not feel as if he is here and therefore he should be rewarded. He earns every day. He calls up and says, Judge, I'm done with this project. What can I do to help? You see, he knows it's about what you do in life's journey. I'm the lucky person for having hired him. I'm the fortunate person because I get to work with him every day. So, I try to do what I'm challenging you to do once you get settled in the legal profession. I promised to provide opportunities and will continue to do so. I truly believe in diversity. Diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, and so on. I know that but for key people like the judges whom I clerked for, Judges Paul Roney and Judges Frank Hull in the U.S. Court of Appeals, I wouldn't be standing here today. I challenge you to pay it forward in your very long practice of law and provide opportunities to deserving individuals. In closing, the 41 of you are law school graduates. Cooley Law has prepared you for the practice of law and pushed you to get the best out of you. You are ready to begin your journey through the practice of law. Remember, it's a little about where you started in life and much more about what you do during your life's journey. I truly believe it. I live by that principle every day, and I'm hopeful you will think about it and come to a similar conclusion. I thank Cooley Law School for allowing me the privilege to be here today to address you. Thank you.